Once again, very good morning to all. So, what was our previous class? In the previous class, we clearly discussed about what is Java, what is the purpose of Java, what are the parts of Java, and also we discussed about what is platform dependency. So, in this session, I will explain about a continuation part, what is platform dependency and what is platform independency. And after that, I will explain about what is mission dependency and mission independency. Then I will explain about different programming approaches. So what are the programming styles out there? So these topics I will discuss in today's session. Okay. So what was our last class? In the last class, what we discussed? The purpose of Java. So what is the purpose of Java? What is Java? Can you please give the response through the messages? What is the purpose of Java? This Java is a general purpose. Java is a general purpose high level programming language. Java is a general purpose high level programming language. It is the general purpose high level programming language. So high level programming language means we can develop application software only. We cannot develop system software. General purpose programming language means we can develop many kinds of applications. Like by using Java, we can develop standalone applications. We can develop web applications, and we can also develop mobile applications. So standalone applications means those are developed to run in one system. For example, we are using Photoshop to edit the photos. To read the PDF files, we are using Acrobat Reader. So these are what? These are the examples for standalone applications. MS Office is a standalone application. Windows Media Player is a standalone application. So the application developed to run in one system is called what? Standalone application. Okay. Then web application. So web application means the application that is published in the server, but that can be accessed by many clients by using the browser through the network. So this web application is published in the server, but that can be accessed by any number of clients with the help of network and the browser. Okay, all the websites are comes under web applications only, like facebook.com, twitter.com, gmail.com, amazon.com. So like this, all these websites are comes under web applications only. So to develop the mobile applications also, we are using the Java. So mobile application means the application that is used to run in small devices, like in the tab, in the smartphone, in the personal digital assistants. Okay, for such type of devices, we can in such type of devices we can run the Java applications. Okay, so using Java, we can develop standalone applications, web applications, and mobile applications. So that's why it is called a general purpose programming language. Okay, so when this language was officially announced, this language was officially announced in 1995 by which company? Sun Microsystems. So Sun Microsystems company officially announced this in 1995. This Sun Microsystems was undertaken by Oracle company in the 2010. And who played major role in the development of Java? James Gosling. James Gosling is the father of Java. He played leading role in the development of Java. Okay, so after this we also discuss about parts of Java. So for the standalone applications, we are using Java SE. Java SE means standard edition. For web applications, we are using Java EE, Java Enterprise Edition. For mobile applications, we are using Java ME. So ME means micro edition. Okay, so after this, we clearly discussed about what is platform dependency also. Okay, now see, listen. Now I am explaining about what is platform dependency again and what is platform independency. So see, pay attention and listen carefully here. Okay, very very important topic. See, so what is platform dependency and what is platform independency? So the languages which are introduced before Java. almost all the languages which are introduced before Java are called platform dependent programming languages. So all the languages which are introduced before Java are called platform dependent programming languages. Example: C language, C++ language, COBOL language, Fortran, Pascal, Algol. Such type of all these languages are introduced before the Java. All those languages are platform dependent programming languages. So the languages which are introduced after Java, including Java, are called platform independent programming languages. So this Java is the platform independent programming language, which is officially announced in 1995. Uh, and later, after Java, C#.NET was introduced. Okay, and Python was introduced. So these are also platform independent languages. So Java, C#.NET, Python, VB.NET, such type of languages are platform independent programming languages. So here you have to understand one point. In the yesterday class, I already explained about this word. So what is platform? Platform means the combination of operating system and microprocessor. Combination of operating system and microprocessor is called platform. What are the examples for operating systems? Like Windows operating system, Linux operating system, Unix operating system. These are called what? These are called operating systems. Okay. What are the examples for microprocessors? Intel microprocessor. We are using Intel microprocessor. Like that, AMD microprocessor is there. Celeron microprocessor is there. Okay. So these are the examples for microprocessors. So what is platform? Platform means combination of operating system and microprocessor. So see, uh, here you have to understand one point, very very important. Each and every operating system has its own language. Each and every operating system has its own language, and each and every microprocessor has its own language. The instructions which can be understood by the Windows may not be understood by the Linux or Unix. The instructions which can be understood by the Linux may not be understood by the Windows or Unix. Like that, each and every operating system has its own language. Each and every microprocessor has also its own language. The instructions which can be understood by Intel may not be understood by AMD or Celeron. The instructions which can be understood by the Celeron may not be understood by the AMD or Intel. So like that, each and every operating system has its own language, and each and every microprocessor has its own language. So yesterday we discussed clearly. See, I'm opening that image. uh, C language is the example. C language is the example for C language is the example for platform dependent programming language. So that's why I'm explaining the program execution of C. In the previous class also I explained. Okay, once again I'm repeating. See here. So this is the execution process of a C program. So observe here. So here we are writing the C program. Here we are writing the C program. So now this is C program. This code I am calling as source code. So the code which is written in the programming language is called what? Source code. So this source code I am storing in one particular file, and I am giving that file name as hello here. So hello.c. .c is the extension of a C program. So now this is the source code. This source code is in high level language. So means that is human understandable language. Computer cannot understand this one. So we have to convert this from high level language to the low level language. So to convert this code from high level language to the low level language, in the Windows operating system, generally we use Alt F9 key. So when we press Alt F9 key, this source code will be translated into machine code, and that places pre-processed directives as it is. So here, after compilation, it is creating one file. That file is called object file. That object file contains machine code plus preprocessor directives. So object file contains machine code plus preprocessor directives. So we have written some instructions here. Those instructions will be converted into machine code. Some preprocessor directives are also there. That code will not be attached here. That code will not be placed here. Okay. So now this is the object file. Object file has semi-machine code. Okay. I want to convert this to the machine code now. So I want to run this object file. So for that, we have to press which key? Control F9. So when you press Control F9, this object file will be converted to the exe file. Okay, now exe file will be created in this. Hello. Okay. See, so this exe file contains machine code, or you can say this as native code, which can be understood by the operating system. So machine code is the operating system's language. Or you can say this as native code. So native code is the operating system's language. So here, so after when you press Control F9, what is happening here? This object file code will be converted into the machine code. So now this system has Windows 10 operating system. So here it generates machine code according to the Windows 10. Now I want to run this C application in another system. I want to run this C application in another system. Okay. So now this system has same operating system Windows 10. This system has also same operating system Windows 10. I want to run this C application. So to run this C application, just simply place this exe file. Just simply take this exe file and place it in this system. Now, can we run this exe file in this system? Yes, we can run. Why? Because this system has Windows 10 operating system. So this exe file has just a minute. Okay. So see, so this file has, listen, this file has machine code. This machine code is generated according to the Windows 10 and according to the microprocessor. Okay, so this code can be easily understood by the Windows 10 operating system, so that we can run. Now, for example, here another system is there. This system has Linux operating system. I want to run the same program. I want to run the same C application in this system which has Linux operating system. So if I place this exe file in this system, can we run this exe file? No, we cannot run. So why we cannot run? So because this exe file has which machine code, which operating system's machine code? Windows 10's machine code. So Windows 10's machine code cannot be understood by the Linux. So that's why we cannot run this exe file in the Linux operating system. So here, this exe file is completely depending on operating system and microprocessor. So that's why we are calling C and C++ are the platform dependent programming languages. So we can run on same operating system. We cannot run on different operating system. So now you may get a doubt. If different operating system is there, then how can we run that C application in that system? Now, for example, here, this system has a Linux operating system. This system has Linux operating system. So I want to run this C application. So this exe file has Windows 10 code. So we cannot run that in Linux. So in such type of situations, if you want to run this program, instead of taking this exe file, instead of placing exe file, place this hello.c program. Place this hello.c program. Place source code file in this system. Again, we have to compile here. So when you compile in the Linux system, it will generate exe file. That exe file contains Linux operating system's native code, Linux operating system's machine code, and according to this microprocessor, exe file machine code will be generated. Okay, so if you want to run in the same operating system, if you want to run in the same operating system, then simply place exe file. If you want to run in different operating system, you have to place the program. Again, you have to compile here. Then only we can run. So here completely the C language or C++ program execution is also same. These are depending on operating system and microprocessor. So that's why we are calling these languages as the platform dependent programming languages. So yesterday I showed practically about platform dependency. Okay, again, I'm explaining. See here, I'm opening C++ screen here. Okay, sorry, this software is uninstalled from my system. If you want to watch that, you can refer the previous video. In the previous video I clearly explained, uh, when we press alt F9, object file will be created, and when we press control F9, exe file will be created. That I showed practically. You can refer that one. So this is about platform dependency. So platform dependency means the languages which are introduced before Java are called platform dependent programming languages. Now, coming to the next one, platform independency. So, what is platform independency? Now, see here. See about platform independency. Platform independency. So, what is platform independency? See, so all the languages which are introduced after Java and including Java are called what? Platform independent programming languages. Okay, so Java is the platform independent programming language. Python is the platform independent programming language. C Sharp.NET is the platform independent programming language. So why we are calling them as platform independent programming languages? So to understand this, I will explain the program execution of Java. So Java program execution, now explain. I will explain. See, observe here. Observe. So this is Java programs execution. Oh, so here I am typing Java program. Here I'm typing a Java program. This Java program code, I'm calling it as source code. So the code which is written in the programming language is called what? Source code. This code I'm storing in one particular file. I am giving that file name as hello. And what is the extension of a Java program? Java program's extension is .java. So .java is the extension of a Java file, Java program file. So .c is the extension of a C file. .cpp is the extension of CPP file. Like that, .java is the extension of Java file. So here hello.java file is created. That file has which code? Source code. Now this code is in high level language. This code is in high level language. Computer cannot understand this code. So we have to convert this from high level code to the low level code. So for that, we have to compile this program. So generally, to compile the Java program, we use one command. What is that one? Java C. So Java C command we use. So with the help of Java C command, I'm compiling this program now. Okay, now what will happen when we compile? This source code will be translated into the bytecode. The source code will be translated into the bytecode. Okay, so when we compile the Java program, what will happen? Source code will be translated into the bytecode. So bytecode means this is the intermediate code. This is the intermediate code which can be understood by the JVM. So only JVM can understand this bytecode language. Then what is JVM? So JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. That is the software to run the Java applications. So if you want to run the Java applications, we must use one special software. That is what? JVM. So without JVM, you cannot run the Java application. So this bytecode is JVM understandable language. So only JVM can understand this one. So JVM is the software which is used to run the Java applications. Only JVM can understand this bytecode. Okay. So when you compile the Java program, that source code will be converted into the byte code, and that byte code will be stored in one particular file with the name main method's class name. So in the Java program, you are writing main method. We are writing main method. That main method's class name will be taken as this bytecode's file name. Okay. Now I want to convert this bytecode to the machine code now. So for that, I'm using another command. What is that? Java. So you are using Java command means now JVM converts this bytecode to the machine code. So when you are using Java command, JVM converts bytecode to the machine code according to the operating system which is installed in the computer, which is installed in the machine. Okay. So here in this system, which operating system is there? Windows 10 operating system is there. So when you use this Java command, JVM converts this bytecode to the machine code according to the Windows 10 operating system and according to the microprocessor it has. So this is the program execution of Java. Once again, I'm repeating. Listen carefully here. Here I'm typing the Java program. This code is called source code. I am storing this code in one particular file. I am giving file name as hello. Okay, the extension is .java. .java is the extension of Java file. Now this program is in high level language. I want to compile this one. So to compile this, we are using Java C command. So when we use Java C command, the source code will be translated into the byte code. Okay, this byte code means that is the intermediate code which can be understood by the JVM. So JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. JVM is the software. JVM is the software that is used to run the Java applications. If you want to run the Java applications, we must use JVM. Without JVM, we cannot run the Java application. So because JVM can understand only this bytecode language. So I want to convert from bytecode to the machine code. For that, I'm using the command Java. I want to run this code. So to run this, I'm using Java. Now JVM translates this bytecode to the machine code. JVM translates bytecode to the machine code. Uh, Machine code means that can be understood by the operating system. So operating system displays results to us. Okay, what is the extension of bytecode file? For the bytecode file, the extension is dot class. So dot class is the extension of bytecode file. Dot exe is the extension of machine code file. Okay, now I will show it practically. Observe here. I'm writing the program now. I'm opening Notepad. I want to write a Java program here. I want to write a Java program, a basic program I'm writing. Class. I'm giving class name as hello. Hello. Starting point of class, ending point of class. Then here, uh, I want to write main method. So write public static void main string array is. Okay, if you don't know about this, no problem at all. Okay, just try to understand what is platform dependency and what is platform independency. Okay, later I will explain clearly about what is public static void main. This I will explain in one session. Okay, don't worry, don't bother about that. Now observe what is platform dependency and what is platform independency. When we execute Java program, what will happen? Observe that point only. Now I want to print hello on output screen. So to print the data on output screen, in the C language, we are using printf. So like that, in the Java, we write the statement system.out.println, system.out.println. I'm writing the string that is hello. I want to print hello, so I'm giving hello here. So now this is one basic Java program to print hello. Now I want to say this is source code now. This is source code. This is in high level language. Computer cannot understand this word. I want to convert this from high level language to the machine code. So for that we have to compile and we have to run. So first save this program. I'm saving the program. Observe carefully here. I am saving this program in the F drive. In the F drive, I'm creating one new folder for our batch. Okay, and I'm giving this folder name as Java 730. Java 730 is the folder. Okay, now observe here. I'm giving file name as hello.java. It's better to give the file name and main methods class name should be same. Okay, why it should be same, that I will discuss later. Okay, if we don't give same name also, then also we can run, we can execute. Okay, but the convention is, the suggestion is, it's better to give this file name as main methods class name, because bytecode will file will be created with main methods class. So for easy identification purpose, it's better to give this main methods class name as the file name. So I'm giving this main methods class name hello here. This main methods class name is hello. So I'm giving file name as hello.java. I'm saving in which drive? In the F drive. In which folder? In Java 730 folder. Okay, I'm saving this one. I'm saving this folder now. Okay, now that for I'm saving this file. File is already saved. Now I want to compile this one. So to compile this, we have to open the command prompt. Now I'm opening command prompt. Okay, so when you press Windows or the displays run command, run dialog box. In the run dialog box, I'm typing CMD. That is displaying command prompt to us. So this is the command prompt. Okay, now we have to go our program's location. So where we saved our program, observe here, in which in the which folder, in the which drive, in the F drive, in which folder, in Java 730 folder, we saved our file. This is what, this is the Java file. This Java file has source code. Okay, now I want to compile that one. So to compile that, I'm using we have to go to that program's location. Okay, so to go to that program's location, which drive? F drive. So I'm typing F colon. Now we are in F drive. I want to go to our folder. So to go to our folder, okay, we use cd command in the MS-DOS. So I'm using cd command here. Okay, our folder name is what? Java 730. So I'm giving Java 730 here. So in the F drive, now we are in the Java 730 folder. I want to compile the Java program now. So to compile the Java program, we have to use one command. What is that command? Java C command. So Java C is the command. Java C is the command that is used to compile the Java program. So I want to run the I want to compile the Java program. So I'm typing Java C. What is our Java source code file name? Source code file name is what? Hello.java. So I'm typing hello.java here. Okay, observe here. Observe. Okay, when I press enter key, what will happen? See, I'm opening that folder's location in the F drive. Our folder is Java 730. Here, what will happen when we compile? Observe here. Observe. Okay, now I'm compiling this program. Okay, so to compile this Java program, what we type? Java C hello.java. So when I press enter key, what happened here? One dot class file is created. One dot class file is created. Okay, with the name main methods class name. So what is main methods class name? Main methods class name is hello. So with that name, here one class file is created. Okay, dot class file is created. So this dot class file has, this class file has what? Bytecode. This bytecode can be understood by JVM only. It cannot be understood by no other software. Okay, no other software can understand this bytecode. Only JVM can understand this bytecode. Okay, now I want to run the JVM. So to run the JVM, we have to use which command? Java command. So Java, now here give this bytecode's file name. Okay, so here Java C hello.java means this hello.java is the source code file name. Then to run the JVM, we have to use Java command. So I'm using Java command here. Now give, we want to convert this bytecode to the machine code. We want to run this bytecode now. So to run this bytecode, give the bytecode's file name. So give the bytecode file name. I'm giving bytecode file name as hello. we have no need to give extension here. Just simply write Java bytecodes file name. So bytecodes file name is hello. So I am typing hello here. Now exe file will be created and that is displaying output as hello here. So this is the execution process of a Java program. Okay. So this is the execution process of Java program. So first we have written what? Source code. Okay, class hello. In the main we have written system.out.println hello. That is what? Source code. So when we use Java C command, what happened? This dot class file is created. Okay, that class has bytecode. To run this bytecode, we are using Java command. So when you use this Java command, this bytecode is translated into the machine code according to the operating system the system has. Okay, so this system has Windows 10 operating system. So here Windows 10 machine code is generated in this system. I want to run this Java application. Now this is a Java application developed in this system which has Windows 10. I want to run the same Java application in another system which has the same operating system Windows 10. Okay. Now if you want to run like that, just simply take this bytecode file. So bytecode file is what? Hello.class. Take this bytecode file and place in this system. Okay, but in this system you must install JVM. So I'm opening this image in the Paint. Just wait. I'm opening this image in the Paint. Okay, I'm opening the image. Okay, observe here. So here this system has Windows 10 operating system. I want to run this hello.class file in this system. Now to run this, we must install JVM in this machine. So what is JVM? JVM is a software. Okay, we have to install that JVM software in this machine to run this Java application. So that JVM translates this bytecode into the machine code now. Now here one exe file will be generated. One exe file will be created here. One exe file will be created here according to Windows 10 operating system. Okay, now same application I want to run in another system which has the Linux operating system. Okay, now what we have to do, just simply take this bytecode file, place in this system. In this system should have what? JVM. This system should have JVM. Now JVM translates this bytecode to the JVM translates this bytecode to the exe. JVM translates this bytecode to the exe according to the Linux operating system. Okay, now see here. If same operating system is there, then also we can run. If different operating system is also there, then also we are doing same process. Okay, so here Java program is platform independent. Similarly, here this system has Unix operating system. I want to run this Java application in this system. Just simply take this bytecode file, place in this system. Okay. Now you must install JVM here. So that JVM converts this bytecode to the machine code. So you can run on this system also. So like that, just simply take the bytecode file and place in any system, you can run the Java application. Okay, so that's why we are calling this Java as the platform independent programming language. Whereas in case of C, C language is completely depending on operating system and microprocessor. So here the point to understand in platform dependency and independency is, listen, in platform dependent languages, in platform dependent programming languages, in platform dependent programming languages, for example, here C source code is there. C source code is there. I want to compile this one. So when we compile, what is happening here? When we compile the program, when we compile and run the program, what is happening here? Exe file will be created. Okay, so .exe file will be created. So in platform dependent programming languages, When we compile, .exe file will be created. Whereas in case of platform independent programming languages, in case of platform independent programming languages, for example, this is Java source code. This is Java source code. Just a minute. Yes. So this is what? This is Java source code. So when we compile this, when we compile this, when we compile this, okay, it is creating intermediate code. That is what? Bytecode. Bytecode. So we give this bytecode to the client. We are the programmers. We are the software developers. We will give bytecode to the client. We will not give any source code to the client. So we give bytecode to the client. That code can be run on any operating system. In case of C language, if you give exe file, he must use that exe file uh, in the operating system which you developed that C program. Okay. So Java source code, when you compile it, bytecode will be created. So intermediate code will be created. So in the platform dependent programming languages, when you compile directly, .exe file will be created. In the platform independent programming languages, intermediate code will be created. Intermediate code will be created. This intermediate code is called, in some languages we call this as bytecode. In some languages we call this as IL code. For example, C sharp language is there. Here I'm writing C sharp source code. When we compile this C sharp source code, when we compile the C sharp source code, it will create one intermediate. It translates this source code to the intermediate code. That intermediate code is called MSIL code, or simply you can call this as IL code. So here IL stands for intermediate language. MSIL stands for, or you can say this as MSIL. So Microsoft Intermediate Language Code. C Sharp is a product of Microsoft. So they have given like that. So here the point to understand is, in platform dependent programming languages, when you compile the source code directly, exe file will be generated. In platform independent programming languages, when you compile the source code, intermediate code will be generated. This intermediate code we will give to the client. Okay, in some languages we call this as bytecode. In the Python also we call that intermediate code as bytecode. In the Python also same. Python, so when you compile this Python source code, that will be converted into the bytecode. Here to run the Java we are using JVM. In the Python, to run the Python we use PVM. That is the difference. Okay, in the Java we use Java virtual machine. In the Python we use Python virtual machine. Everything is same. Okay, so this is about platform dependency and independency. Okay, so finally the conclusion is, platform dependent programming. What are the examples for platform dependent programming languages? C, C++ are the platform dependent programming languages. When you compile this program, exe file will be created. uh, what are the examples for platform independent programming languages? Java, C Sharp, .NET, Python. These are the platform independent programming languages. In platform independent programming languages, when you compile, intermediate code will be generated. To run that intermediate code, one special software is required. To run the bytecode, JVM is required. To run the IL code, .NET framework is required. So one special software is required to run this intermediate code. So this is about platform dependency and platform independency. I hope all of you get clarity on, all of you got some clarity on what is platform dependency and what is platform independency. So this is about platform dependency and platform independency. Now observe here. Next topic. Next, see about see about what is mission dependency, what is mission dependency, and what is mission independency. What is mission dependency and what is mission independency? See, mission dependency and mission independence. So very simple. C, C++, and all the languages which are introduced before Java. All the languages which are introduced before Java, all the languages which are introduced before Java are called mission dependent programming languages. Like C language, C++ language, COBOL, Fortran system of languages or mission dependent programming languages. Then what is mission dependent? So what is mission dependent? See here. So see about mission dependency. Mission dependency. So all the languages which are introduced before Java are called mission dependent programming languages. So before Java, this feature was not there. Mission independency feature was not there. So C, C++ are the mission dependent programming languages. So mission dependent programming languages means we can run on computer only. We can run on computer only. So the applications developed in C, C++ language, the applications developed in C, C++ language can run on computer only. You cannot run on other devices. Okay, what are those other devices? Like I'm typing here. Okay, you cannot run on you cannot run C, C++ on mobile. So you cannot run the application which is developed in the application which is developed in C, C++ cannot run in mobile, and it cannot run in the PDS, personal digital assistants, in the PDS. You cannot run in the router. You cannot run in the set-top boxes. Okay, like this, several devices out there. Blu-ray DVD players, Blu-ray DVD players. Okay, like this, several devices are there. Or in all these electronic devices, you cannot run C, C++ applications. So the software developed in C, C++ can run on computer only. We cannot run on many devices like smartphones, tabs, personal digital assistants, routers, set-top boxes, Blu-ray DVD players, etc. Okay, then what are mission independent programming languages? So what is mission independency? What is mission independency? See, so all the languages introduced after Java, including Java. So Java is the mission independent programming language. So all the languages which are introduced after Java, including Java, are the mission independent programming languages. Okay, so the application developed in Java can run on computer, Now, can we run that software developed in Java in mobile? Yes, we can run. So we can run on smartphones. We can run on smartphones. We can run that application on tabs. We can run that application on PDS. We can run that application on router. We can run on Blu-ray DVD player. We can run on set-top boxes. So like that, on Java application can run on billions of devices. So when you are installing Java software, that in the background that displays to you, okay, 3 billion devices like that. So it supports to millions of devices. So Java application you can run on millions of devices. So that's why we are calling Java as the mission independent programming language. Once again, I'm repeating. Observe here. So mission dependent programming language means the examples are C, C++. The software developed in C, C++ can run on computer only. You cannot run on other devices like mobile, personal digital assistants, router, etc. So mission independency means the software developed in Java. The software developed in Java can run on many machines, not only on computer, but also we can run on smartphones, tabs, routers, Blu-ray DVD players, set-top boxes, etc. So this is about mission dependency and mission independency. Okay. Now, I hope you understood what is platform independency and what is mission independency. These two are the important features of the Java. So because of these two features only, Java became very famous. From the last 2 decades, this Java is ruling the software industry. Okay, so why Java became famous? Because of these two reasons only. First one is what? Platform independency. This is the platform independent programming language, and this is the mission independent programming language. Java is the platform independent programming language and mission independent programming language. So before Java, we were using languages like C, C++ only. To develop the application softwares, we were using C, C++ only. But those applications we can run on computer only. So those are the mission dependent programming languages, and those can run on the operating system in which we developed that software. So those are the platform dependent programming languages. So this Java, when Java is introduced, it brought to new features. Those are platform independency and machine independency. Because of these two features, Java became famous. So uh, all the programmers are shifted from C, C++ to the Java. Almost all the uh, language rules, fundamentals like operators, control structures, which are used in the C, C++ are also same in the Java. So that's why most of the people, most of the developers of C, C++, they converted to the Java. Okay, so this is the importance of Java. So Java is the platform independent programming language, and it is the mission independent programming language. Okay, now see the next topic. Next topic is, see, topic name is different programming approaches. So now, as a programmer, you should know what are the different programming approaches out there. So what is the topic name here? Programming approaches. Programming approaches. So here, what is approach? So approach means just simply that is style. Programming approach means the style of writing a program. So what is programming approach? Programming approach means the style of writing a program. The style of writing a program is called programming approach. Programming approach means the style of writing a program. The style of writing a program is called a programming approach. See, there are mainly four styles out there. There are mainly four styles out there. First one is sequential programming approach. First one is sequential programming approach. Second one is procedure oriented programming approach. Third one is object based approach. Object based approach. And fourth programming style is the object oriented approach. Object oriented approach. Okay, now see, so what is programming approach? Programming approach means the style of writing a program. So how many styles are there to write a program? Mainly four styles are there. What are those? First one is sequential approach. Second one is procedure oriented approach. Third one is object based approach, and fourth one is object oriented approach. So here, what is the first approach? Sequential approach. Okay, now I will explain very clearly about sequential approach. Listen carefully here. So in sequential approach, we write the code sequentially. In sequential approach, we write the code sequentially. In sequential approach, we write the code sequentially. So we write the code sequentially in the sequential programming approach. See, if you write the code sequentially, mainly two drawbacks are there. For example, for example, I'm opening new file here. See, for example, here I'm writing the code. I'm writing some code here sequentially. I'm writing some code sequentially here. I'm writing some code sequentially. So after writing one statement, I'm writing another statement. Okay. So now, like this, I'm typing. For example, this program has 10 lines code. So here very less amount of code is there. Very less amount of code is there. By referring this code, we can understand this code very easily because this has very less amount of code. For example, I'm writing a program. I'm writing a program here. I'm writing a program here which has 100 lines of code. Which has 100 lines of code. Okay. Now this file has how many lines code? 100 lines code. This file has how many lines code? 100 lines code. So here we managed to understand by referring, by taking some time, we can understand this code. So for example, I'm typing like this. I'm typing 50,000 lines code. So here large amounts of code is there, or 5 lakh lines I'm writing sequentially, or 50,000 lines I'm writing sequentially, or 1 lakh lines code I'm writing sequentially. Here large amounts of code is there. So when large amounts of code is there, it becomes difficult to understand which code we have written for which purpose. So this is the first drawback with the sequential approach. So what are the examples for sequential programming languages? Like starting versions of COBOL. Okay, I'm not talking about latest versions. Earlier versions means starting versions. Starting versions, earlier versions of COBOL, Fortran. These are the examples for sequential programming languages. In the COBOL, we write the code sequentially. In the Fortran, we write the code sequentially. So if you write large amounts of code sequentially, if you write 50,000 lines sequentially, it becomes difficult to understand which code we have written for which purpose. So that code will not be under the control of the programmer. So this is the first drawback. So here mainly two drawbacks are there. So first drawback is less understandability is there. Less understandability is there. Okay. If large amounts of code is there sequentially, it becomes difficult to understand the code. And another drawback is it increases the sequential programming style increases length of code. It increases length of code. So it increases length of code. Observe here. For example, see, observe. For example, here I am writing some code. I'm writing some code to add 5 numbers. To add 5 numbers, to add 5 numbers, I'm writing this code. To add 5 numbers, I'm writing this code. So after this, some lines of code is there. So like this, we are writing the code sequentially. Okay. So after here, we are writing the code to add 5 numbers. After some lines of code, again, I want to add 5 numbers now. So again, if you want to add 5 numbers, again, we have to write this same code here. Again, we have to write the same code here. Now, after some lines of code, after some lines of code, after some lines of code, again, I want to add 5 numbers. So again, I have to write the same code here. So with this, what happening here, it increases the length of code. So to add 5 numbers, here I'm writing some code. After some lines of code, after some lines of code, if you want to add 5 numbers again we have to write the same code here. So here we are performing particular task. To perform the same task again, after some time, again we have to write the same code. After some lines, again if you want to perform the same task, again we have to write the same code. Okay, so automatically what will happen here, code length will be increased. I'm taking another example. So for example, here I'm writing this code to add factorial of a number. After some lines, again I want to find factorial of the number. So again I have to write the same code here. I cannot reuse that code. Okay, so that is a drawback here. Again I have to write the same code. After some lines of code, if we want to find the factorial, again we have to write the same code. So same code again and again we are writing here. So automatically what will happen? Code length will be increased. Code length will be increased. So it increases length of code. So these two are the drawbacks of sequential approach. So to avoid these two drawbacks, they introduced another approach, another style, that is what? Procedure oriented approach. Procedure oriented approach. Okay, so once again I'm repeating. So topic name is programming approaches. So approach means style. Programming approach means the style of writing the program. The style of writing the program is called programming approach. There are four styles out there. First style is sequential style. Second one is procedure oriented style. Third one is object based style. And fourth one is object oriented style. In sequential style, we write the code sequentially. Example languages are COBOL language, Fortran language, or starting versions of COBOL, Fortran are examples for sequential programming languages. So we write the code sequentially. If we write the code sequentially, two drawbacks are there. First one is less understandability. It becomes difficult to understand if large amounts of code is there, and it increases the length of code. So we cannot reuse the code. After performing one task, if you want to perform the same task again, we cannot reuse that code. Again, we have write the same code. Okay, so automatically code length will be increased. So these two are the drawbacks of sequential approach. So to avoid these two drawbacks, they introduced what? Procedure oriented approach. In the procedure oriented approach, okay, the best example for procedure oriented programming language is C language. So C language is the procedure oriented programming language. C language is the procedure oriented programming language. In this procedure oriented approach, we write program in the form of functions. We write program in the form of functions. So in the sequential approach, we write the code sequentially. But here I'm dividing into some parts. Here I'm dividing the code into some parts. I'm calling that part as function here. Okay, in the procedure oriented, we are writing the program in the form of functions. For example, I want to add two numbers. So to add two numbers, I'm writing a function here. So like that, I want to find factorial of a number. So to find factorial of a number, I'm writing a function here. I want to find power values. So to find for power values, I'm writing a function here. So like this, we are writing what? We are writing the functions. So here now this is one procedure oriented program. This program we are dividing into some parts. Okay, so each part I'm calling as function. Here add is the function, fact is the function, power is the function. In some languages we call this as function. In some languages we call this as procedure. In some languages we call this as module. So you can use any term. Okay, you can say function or procedure or module. Okay, so here we are writing program in the form of modules, in the form of functions. So if you divide like this, automatically what will happen? It improves the understandability. So here you can understand clearly. You have to understand this part only, not entire code, not entire program. In the sequential approach, it becomes difficult to understand because every that code is in sequentially. That code is line by line. So here we are writing in the form of parts. So here we can understand clearly. Here this is add block, this is fact block, this is power block, this is one function. So you can understand the code very clearly. So first drawback is avoided. So that becomes advantage of procedure oriented programming language. So for the procedure oriented programming language, the advantage is it improves understandability because we are dividing into some parts. It improves understandability. It improves understandability. So in the sequential approach, we write code sequentially. If large amounts of code is there, it becomes difficult to understand. But here we are dividing into some parts. Okay, so we can understand very easily because it is in the form of parts. Okay, and second drawback of sequential approach is what? It increases length of code. It increases length of code. So just now I explained. So in the sequential approach, here to perform one task, we are writing this code. After some lines, if you want to perform the same task, again we are writing the same code. So automatically code length is increasing in the sequential approach. Whereas in case of procedure oriented, what we will do, just simply from the main function, what we will do here, I want to find factorial of a number. So to find factorial of a number, okay, just simply I'm calling fact function here. So here, this is what fact function. This fact function is taking one argument here, okay, and that is returning some value. Okay, so I want to find the factorial of a number. So to find the factorial of a number, just simply I'm calling this function. So that goes here and that executes the code which is in this function. So after some lines of code, if I want to find the factorial again, after some lines of code, if I want to find the factorial again, I will not write this code here. Just simply what I do, I call that function. So here again I'm calling. So here we are writing code for how many times? One time only. But we can use that code for any number of times. So we are writing code only for one time, but we can use that code for any number of times. So automatically what will happen here? Code length will be decreased. So that is the advantage of the procedure oriented approach. So it decreases length of code. So these are the advantages of procedure oriented approach. These are the advantages of procedure oriented approach. But this procedure oriented approach has also some drawbacks. So to avoid those drawbacks, they introduced what? Object oriented approach. Then what is object based, object oriented? What are the drawbacks of procedure oriented? These things I will explain in the next session. Okay. Okay. Now, so I'm stopping the session here. I'm stopping the session. If you have any doubts, you can ask now. Do you have any doubts? Okay, shall I stop the session? Shall I stop the session?
Yeah.
Hello?
Sir, continue.
Yeah, Sudhir Reddy. Yes, tell me.
Sorry, the class duration, how much time this is?
This is I take 60 to 70 classes. I take 60 to 70 classes for this course.
Okay, 60 to 70 classes. Almost 2 months, right? Okay, sure.
Yeah, yes, 2 months. Yes. Yes. Do you have any doubts? Shall I stop the session? Yes. I'm stopping today's session. Okay, tomorrow I will explain about what are the drawbacks of procedure oriented approach and what is object based and what is object oriented. That I will explain in tomorrow's class. Okay, thanks to all. See you tomorrow at 7:35.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?